in your world, how would you like to work with brands?
I feel like everybody puts wine influencers in like a clump together.
Yep.
But we're all so different. I never set out to be an influencer.
So I think that's just one thing for brands to keep in mind, is allowing the creator to have some freedom with it.
Was there one piece of content that went viral and then changed the trajectory?
For me, no. I feel like it's been a slow and steady growth. I feel like that's a common misconception, that you're going to just have something go viral and all of a sudden take off.
Was this the one that you were pouring when we were having the Wagyu beef? Whatever that was with the Wagyu beef pairing, I still think about that combination. It was so good.
So good.
Welcome to the Share the Lohr podcast by J. Lohr Vineyards and Wines, where we take you behind the scenes over a glass of wine. Let's uncork and dive in. Well, Paige, Lexi, thanks for jumping on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
So I met you both last month, at Paso Wine Fest. And we had a little bit of fun blind tasting some Riverstone Chardonnay. I guess it's kind of blind. It's price blind. We're at the J. Lohr booth. This is J. Lohr Chardonnay, 100% barrel fermented.
It's really pretty.
A lucky taster number one. But today we're going to taste a few other wines and talk all things about being a content creator, an influencer, a digital storyteller, a wine educator. These are I'd say a lot of people's dream jobs to have. And so I'm doing it internally. You're doing it externally. But I'd love to just paint the picture with a little bit more context about you all. So for someone who may not know who Paige and Lexi is, give me the quick 30-second background. Paige, why don't you start it off?
Sure. So I'm Paige. I have an Instagram and website called Wine with Paige, where I share about incredible wine adventures where you can go wine tasting, facts about wine, wine tasting notes. And in addition to that, I also am a photographer for wineries, and I do social media marketing.
Sweet. So a little bit of everything. That means you get to work with really fun brands, work for yourself. I like it.
Yeah.
And Lexi, what about you?
My name's Lexi. My website and Instagram are called Lexi's Wine List. So in addition to content marketing for wine brands, I share food pairings, wine travel, and then I also host virtual and in-person wine tasting events.
Okay, so we have probably the best jobs, I would say, in the industry that we can argue. So can we just cheers to that first off?
Yeah. Cheers.
Too bad we couldn't do this in person, but there you go. Cheers to some great job. By the way, for everyone's wondering what we're cheering with, this is our 2022 J. Lohr Arroyo Vista Chardonnay, which we did not taste at Wine Fest. But ladies, maybe you can tell me if you were do you have a go-to Chardonnay pairing, and maybe one that you would pair with first?
I love Chardonnay. So people always ask like what my favorite variety is. And I say I'm an equal opportunist. Like I love to try new things. But if you actually look at my collection, it's largely Champagne and Chardonnay.
Okay.
So I guess I do have a bias. And I make this mac and cheese with Gouda and goat cheese and crispy prosciutto on top. And it's so good paired with a like slightly oaky, yummy, crisp, juicy Chardonnay like this. So I would do that.
Well, you will have to link me the website to that, and I'll drop that in the show notes afterwards, because I hate it when we talk about food, but we can't see the food. So I will not do that to the audience.
It's so good. It's from this cookbook that it's 1 pan, 2 plates, because I've always lived on my own pretty much. So it's really great because it's nice and easy to make.
There you go. Get 2 meals. Lexi, what about you?
This might be a little bit basic, but I love a baked brie with Chardonnay. It just works every time. I feel like the creaminess of the wine and the creaminess of the cheese match. And then since Chardonnay does have pretty balanced acidity, that kind of cuts through the creaminess of the cheese. And I love playing around with like different toppings for baked brie. So you could do like grilled peaches, which are in season right now. I just did like a strawberry basil one, which was really good. So or you can wrap it in like phyllo dough, which is always fun, especially around the holidays. But yeah, I'm a sucker for baked brie and Chardonnay. It works every time.
Do you have a favorite type of brie?
A favorite type of brie?
Yeah.
Honestly, I get most of my cheeses from Trader Joe's just because they're the most affordable. So whatever they're serving up at Trader Joe's is usually what I go for. Did you ask
team
because
like,
you have a
I
favorite?
mean, yeah, mine would be like a really creamy triple cream brie.
Yeah, of course.
So, and
Yeah.
then Paige, I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, so we're aligned. We both want cheese with our Chardonnay.
Yes. Cheese with any wine, honestly.
Okay, we're talking about the industry. I want the backstory now. How did you get into the role that you're in first? Paige, I'm gonna start with you. This digital storyteller for obviously your own personal brand, but also for other brands. How did this come into play?
It's a very roundabout story. So I grew up in the Midwest. Neither of my parents drink at all, like at all. So I was freshly 21 in college going through a business program at the University of Michigan. And I felt like as a business person, I should know about wine, and I knew nothing. So I picked up Wine for Dummies over Christmas break, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I became immediately obsessed. I found every single book that my library had at the time on wine and just read everything. I ended up, my first career was in fashion in New York. That's what I really wanted to do. So I was a buyer for Bloomingdale's. And at that time is when I started doing my W set too, just for fun. I just wanted to learn everything I could. Just such a nerd about it, like drinking as much as I could, but in an educational way.
Tasting.
Like, New York is great because you can't buy wine in a grocery store. So there's all of these like really small wine shops that have really great wine educational staff members, and they do regular tastings. So like I would go to all of these free tastings and taste as much as I could and learn as much as I could. Fast forward, ended up switching jobs, got recruited by Walmart, moved to California, and I knew I wanted to take it because I was still really interested in wine, again, only on a personal level. But I just kept loving it, kept wanting to learn more. And so I did my WSET 3. And at that time, one of the instructors, Martin Reyes, who's a master of wine, was looking for someone to help him as an assistant with all of his things. Like he's a writer, he manages a wine brand, he does importing and distribution. So he's just looking for someone to help with all the things. And so working for him was my first foray into wine, like the actual industry. And while I was doing that and doing my WSET 3 and working full time, I started a page, Wine with Paige, on Instagram as just a way to share what I was learning. And it really just grew from there.
I love it. That is the best way to go about it, is to just document what you're learning and publicize it as much as possible. And just whether it's right or it's wrong, it's I learned this or I think this, and no one could really tell you otherwise because that's what you think. Right?
Yeah, it was really, I never set out to be an influencer. But I really wanted to share what I was learning, and I was just so excited about the wine industry and the places I was going. And I did have a background in photography. Like I did that for fun as a way to like help pay through school. I used to shoot weddings and high school senior portraits. So I love photography. And this just really was like a combination of my love for photography, my business background, my love for wine, and just perfect place, perfect time.
Well, congratulations. That sounds fun. And now you're in Napa, living the dream.
Yeah. And now this is my full-time thing. Moved up to Napa in January of 2021 and haven't looked back since. It's been great.
Okay. And then Lexi, you got Lexi's wine list.
Yes.
And you curate your lists, you have a wine club, and you're doing education. Where did that start, and what's the background behind all of that?
Yeah. So my background has actually always been in wine, but the content creation kind of fell in by accident, kind of like Paige. But I did a semester abroad in Florence during college, and we studied wine and we studied food and wine pairing. So that's kind of where I absolutely fell in love with wine. And when I came back, I graduated from college and then started working in the industry doing marketing for a large brand. And then at that time was doing my WSET. I did through my WSET level 3 and decided to work on the distributor side of things. So I did on-premise sales for a distributor. However, that was right when COVID started. So unfortunately, I didn't get to fully experience that sort of job. But during that time, since I had so much extra time, I started doing virtual tastings just for like family and friends, all the while starting my Instagram and my blog when I was studying for WSET, kind of the same way as Paige, like documenting things that I was learning and just sharing it for fun. And so I started doing the virtual tastings during COVID, and that kind of really took off. And so once things started opening up again, I expanded to in-person tastings as well. And that's kind of how I landed here. So kind of grew the content creation business along the way. And now that's one of the primary things that I focus on now.
Wow. Okay. Interesting shift then.
Yeah.
For either of you, was there one piece of content, blog post, a reel, a YouTube video that went viral and then like changed the trajectory of what you guys are thinking with in terms of business wise?
For me, no. I feel like it's
Okay.
been a slow and steady growth and really just sticking with it. I feel like that's a common misconception that you're going to just like have something go viral and all of a sudden take off. I feel like more often than not, it's the slow and steady wins the race when it comes to social media.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree. I would say like sometimes a random thing will go viral, and Paige can probably attest to this. It's usually like the thing that you put the least amount of effort into, like a 5-second clip that just starts going viral for like no reason. So I've had like random stuff like that, but then that doesn't change the way that I'm creating content. So I feel like it's kind of random in that way.
I think the funniest thing too is that the pieces that actually get like, to me, I'll be like, oh, like this didn't get a lot of views, but I really enjoyed making it, so I'm gonna keep doing it. Those are the things that like book me the most jobs. They're the things that
Yes.
people bring up the most often. Like I have this Halloween series I do where it's haunted wineries, and people bring that up all the time. But I don't think I've ever gotten more than 5,000 views on one of those. But I like doing it, so I keep doing it.
I feel the exact same way. Like I feel like the food pairings that I share are usually what get me the most amount of jobs, but like those are not my most popular pieces of content. So it's kind of funny. Like I really enjoy making them, so I'm happy to keep doing it. But yeah, it's kind of funny like what brands are looking for and then what tends to go viral is pretty random.
I feel like there's like nurture content for people who really love you, who keep following you because they like seeing like your food content or my haunted wineries. And then there's the like viral potential. And those are
Yes,
the quick, fast, digestible, shareable pieces that I'm less excited about, but it gets people in.
for sure.
Okay, so I do want to dive into some of these fun little almost pain points or observations. And again, for the audience, there's two different, sides of the coin here. And I want to have, as candid as you all want to share. Of course, you want to name any other brands or anything like that. But, myself on the brand side for Lohr as the media buyer, right? So buying your traditional ads, buying your influencer ad buys, etc. But brands and personal brands have a different opinion and needs for how they want to tell their story. What interesting nuances. I guess in your perfect world, how would you want brands to approach you?
I mean,
And also, hold on, let me get one more preface.
It's a loaded
don't
question.
We have done a partnership with Paige years ago. Nothing with Lexi yet. This podcast is not sponsored in any way. This is kind of just open conversations. If in your world, how would you like to work with brands, and what kind of content could you make that would be most impactful, either for the brand, for your audience, for reach?
I mean, I think the first thing that brands need to do that they don't always is really vet the influencers they choose to work with and make sure they're already aligned. Like, I feel like everybody puts wine influencers in like a clump together,
Yep.
Mhm.
but we're all so different. We all have our own personal brand that's going to align more or better with different brands. Like, I don't know, the same person who works with like Barefoot Moscato probably shouldn't be working with Opus One. Like,
Right.
it makes sense, but somehow brands, I feel like, miss that. And so like right off the bat, if you get that right, it's going to be so much easier to trust the influencer to create content that's going to align with you and do well with their audience.
I agree. Lexi, how about you?
I mean, I would say the number one thing, and I know Paige would agree with this too, but I still get approached by so many brands asking for work in exchange for just like product, just for wine for free. And I think brands need to look at content creation as like work, right? You wouldn't have somebody paint your house and then like pay them in paint. Like it just doesn't work like that. So I would say that's like the number one sort of pain point that a lot of us are still dealing with. And then secondly, I think in my like dream collaboration or the brands that I love working with so much, will give me like creative freedom. I think sometimes, it's great to have a brief and a mood board from a brand, but then sometimes like the rules are just so strict that I feel like I can't, put my own creative spin on it to reach my audience specifically, because I know my audience best. And so I think that's just one thing for brands to keep in mind, is allowing the creator to have some freedom with it and have some fun with it too.
Definitely. And that's from a brand side, that's the toughest part.
I bet.
Is you also know that the creator knows their audience best. But on the flip side, there are certain brand standards that you have to align. And of course, the bigger the brand, the more rules they probably have established. And it's the same almost like for winemaking. I had a conversation with the winemakers of everyone, at surface level says, great, the single vineyard one is the best wine. And our winemaker said, well, it can be, but sometimes because there's so many rules in place with what you have to put in that bottle, I can't make the best wine because it may not be from that one vineyard source. I might have to blend, but I can't do that in a single vineyard wine. And so as you think about content creation, yeah, it's interesting. And you have to expect the work. I also think that brands need an expectation of how big the creator is. Obviously, you're going to have a higher price point to that, much like if you're going to do a traditional media buy. Your bigger publications are going to cost more. And I'm sure that we have all at some point have done some free exchanges as we were growing.
For sure.
So if someone's just starting out, what would you say?
And having boundaries and setting firm expectations up front for both sides can be so helpful.
For sure.
I have a general sample policy. It's listed on my website. I list it in every email that somebody wants to send me something, just so everybody feels clear and good about the exchange.
Yeah.
And we know what to expect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like 80% of life is just making sure proper expectations are set for whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From a brand side, if someone's listening to this and wants to do brand deals, say with Lohr, yes, if the work is good, obviously we want to compensate you appropriately. But I think, especially if you're just starting off and you're learning how to create content, the best way to learn is just to start posting and tagging about the brands that you ordinarily already use on a daily basis. So if you have a favorite wine, if there's a favorite dishwashing soap, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Favorite workout clothes, just tag those and use that to start building a relationship. And then over time, if the content gets good and you get noticed, the brands will notice too. But you don't have to start with a strong pitch. You can just actually just start to build a relationship, and that would hopefully generate a longer partnership too over the course of time.
Yeah. Relationships are like the biggest key in this industry for sure.
Yeah. 100%.
And it's such a small industry, so you never want to burn a bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm especially like Lexi. If you were on the distributor side, that's the entire game.
Yeah.
And the players move to different teams, to different areas, and the beverage industry is way too small.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Staying on the content thing, what is working today, in your opinion, in 2024? Everyone's trying to figure out what the algorithm is, but what's the magic sauce? What do you think it is? What's working for you?
I mean, I feel like it is a little bit random. Some days, some of your content is going to do better than other days. It doesn't matter if you post the same thing twice. It's a little bit random. Like, that's completely out of our control. But I think
Instagram Meta has said that's part of their strategy.
Yeah.
Like, they want you to feel addicted, like how you are to gambling, by sometimes your like content pops off and sometimes it doesn't. So like, it's truly out of your control. But
totally. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, we can only control so much. The thing that we can control is, creating quality content that we feel like aligns with our brand and speaks to our audience. So for me, like, what's working is letting go of feeling like, oh, I spent so much time on this video and it barely got any views. That's just a waste of time at this point, because like Paige said, there's your audience that's been there for years and they look forward to your content. And they're the ones that are going to be there to support you no matter what, even if your video gets 200 views or whatever. So I think just like letting go of that idea of like, oh, is this one going to go viral? Or like, why didn't this one do well? And just sticking to your brand and sticking to your voice and things that get you excited to talk about. Because Paige mentioned that earlier, like things that inspire you, things that make you feel motivated, things that you enjoy creating, like that's the only way to keep going in this industry, because burnout can hit really hard and really fast, and it happens all the time. And so having things that you're inspired to create and that you're actually enjoying, I think is what's working. I know that that's doesn't super answer your question about like what's working on Instagram, but truly a lot of it is unfortunately out of our control. So
Yeah.
Okay. So the randomization, I
yeah.
like it. And it's just testing, I think, is maybe another way
Yes.
to phrase that. Paige, what about you? Has there been a format or something that you kind of leaned into recently?
So I mean, kind of everything Lexi said. I feel like the most important thing is being authentic to yourself and what you want to be sharing. And then I found what's been really successful for me lately is having different series. So I have like 3 or 4 series, and it's hard not to want to do more. But the more I post consistently in the same way about the same things, the better they do, because your audience like knows right off the bat when they see like one of my tasting note series reels. They know what to expect and they get excited for it, and they know they like it, so they're going to watch it all the way through. And that's something I actually figured out from one of my friends is a pottery influencer, and he literally is just sitting at his wheel in every video, just like making pottery. But there's something so relaxing about it that I know every time it pops up, I want to watch the video, even though they're all kind of the same. And I feel like he might like even get bored shooting them, but people like routine, people like knowing what to expect. And I feel like that's done really well for me too, as I've like set up series and continued with them.
For sure. I think the series are nice because, again, going back to setting expectations, the viewer knows what to expect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's fun. On the pottery note, I do think that in terms of, let's just say, Reels and TikTok, the I'm teaching you and blank is a format that is over delivering right now. On the pottery note, you want to see the before and after, but what are they going to make? I have no idea. I want to see it. Are they going to mess up?
Yeah.
Like you're just naturally, you need to close the loop. From a wine side, aside from winemaking, that I think, and I've been wanting to do blind competitive videos with the winemakers but that's not, it's not so much of a thing that you can do and still have a conversation that's different. Unless you guys have an idea for me, but that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around is like, what is a replicatable format that is visually stimulating, but that you can also have a conversation about anything, selling wine, making wine, doesn't matter, cooking. I haven't figured out a wine yet. Maybe it's assembling a cheese board.
Yeah, I think that's the hard thing is wine isn't inherently visual.
Yep.
And so adding in something lifestyle, like food, like a charcuterie board or cooking something can be really helpful.
Yep.
But I don't know if that ties into what you're trying to talk about or not.
I mean, my job is trying to talk to consumer. And so if there is, granted, if I was also the private chef concept that's also trending right now.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's just their client is themselves is also a fun thing to watch. But I
Mhm.
think wine can do something there of like, oh, here's the pairing, bang, of course, compare with this. The content that we pay creators for in-house could be an interesting position.
Yeah.
I think.
Be a private sommelier for myself.
I haven't seen any like high-end luxury somm videos of them actually at the table. Like that could be a fun, candid conversation that gets recorded.
Yeah.
Because the way that I'm sure, each of you have a little hand in that, but the way that you have to sell wine at the table at high-end restaurants is extremely detail-oriented. And you have to be a great storyteller.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Somms are some of the best storytellers.
Mhm.
And they're so good at like the elevator pitch and creating connection in the like 30-second window that they have to sell you on the wine. Honestly, more of them should be on social media because they're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good at the crucial parts of it already.
Okay, let's switch back now. there's a couple different concept types. I'm sure you guys have made content that have both ended up being as organic posts and ads. Any advice to other creators who are thinking about making content for either of those mediums?
Like, do you mean like UGC, like where you're creating content for a winery, not posting it on your page, but the winery is then posting it as an ad? Is that kind of what you're asking about, or?
Yes and no. Okay, just for definitions for the audience sake, UGC, user-generated content, is content that creators make, brands pay for, and isn't necessarily posted on either Paige or Lexi's account. It's just content that we can use at whatever the agreed upon usage is. Then there's the influencer spot that has the same content created, but is also posted on Paige's account or Lexi's account. And 9 times out of 10, we pay a premium because of the audience that is also on their channels. And then there's a third aspect to it where you can also layer in advertising buys. And so sometimes, either whether it be the individual creator or agencies or the manager, whoever you're talking to, will layer in other aspects to the deal because a brand wants to use it as an ad. Do you guys approach the making content for ads versus organic differently?
Just to clarify again. So are you saying like an ad that the brand would just post on their own, or I post it to my channel and the brand is boosting it?
Let's go that route, because I feel like that's a little more normal in the influencer side.
Yeah. I mean, no, to be honest. But like, I don't think I would approach it differently, because I think I would just, you want to hit all of the points that the brand wants you to hit. You want to follow the brief, and you also want to, again, like you said, this is going to my audience. So like, I know how to talk to them and I know what they're interested in. So I personally wouldn't change my approach at all. I don't know, Paige, what do you think?
That's like how I make organic content too. Like, I'm still like creating, like, I might not necessarily have the same detail of a brief because it's for myself, but I sit down at the beginning of the week and I figure out what content I'm posting for the next 2 weeks. I write my scripts and then I make little storyboards for myself of what I need to shoot. So like, it's kind of the same whether I'm coming up with that myself or if the brand is handing me bullet points. And at the end of the day, whether it's organic or it's a paid post, I still want it to feel authentic to me and my content and my storytelling. So it feels the same.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And it's tough, right? And I think from a brand perspective, there's 2 really main channels of marketing. There's marketing for brand awareness and there's marketing for sales, which are very, very different. On the influencer side, most times the target is for brand. And so it's increased brand awareness, increased audience size, etc. There are seldom times where there's an immediate call to action if there's a specific sell, giveaway, etc. That's probably a little bit easier tracked too, just because of naturally by the end result of it. But the best organic content is oftentimes the best content to then also further promote.
Oh, well, it's like interesting to your point, like the different like intentions, like is it for brand awareness or is it for like actually trying to drive sales? And I feel like the best content does both, but it's really hard to sell wine, like specifically sell wine immediately on Instagram versus like experiences. Like when I post about, like I just shared about like Gentleman Farmer wines on my Instagram, and within an hour of posting, they got 6 phone calls for people booking their tasting. And it's just like that partnership with like me and them was so closely aligned with like their brand ethos, my brand ethos, my audience was excited. And so like it just worked. But if I had just been trying to sell their wine, I think it would have been a lot harder than talking about the experience itself. So it's a very interesting mixture.
Actually, I think the one thing specifically about like food and wine experiences, the most shareable content is the content where someone says, I just visited, say, XYZ restaurant or whatever tasting room it is. And the POV of it with a little bit of voiceover. God.
The vlog
like
style.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what like Sorry, go
Going
ahead.
back to your last question, what's doing well? I feel like Instagram has completely, like, post-pandemic, people are using it more than ever to find cool experiences, and so talking
Yeah.
about experiences is something I do a lot more now than I did pre-pandemic. And so that's been a change, and that's been successful.
Yeah, I agree that like vlog style,
Mhm.
you know, try this experience or go to this region is definitely working really well right now.
Yeah, for me, what I think about is, yes, tell your story, but show your story and tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
But that show to take higher priority.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to think. Okay, talking about authenticity. Authenticity. Brands use it a lot. Content creators use it a lot. Everyone uses it a lot. But gosh, that is the hardest thing to balance. Of okay, I want to post what I want to post. I want to post what might be valuable for my audience, but also stay in line with the brand. How do you actually approach that? Because that's super tricky.
I mean, I feel like for me, it's just a gut feeling. Like there are certain brands that I would never work with, and they have approached me before, but I know that I personally don't enjoy their product, and I wouldn't recommend somebody else enjoying their product or, you know, trying their product. So I think for me, it's like kind of black and white. Like I know exactly sort of which brands and what kind of, again, what kind of ethos I want to align myself with. So like, or if it's a brand that I'm not super familiar with, I'll do like a ton of research on them just to make sure that it's aligned. And then of course, try the wine before I post about it and recommend people to try it. But I don't know. For me, it's a gut feeling and then maybe research as well if I'm not familiar with the brand. But Paige, I don't know how you go about that.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'll never talk about something that I don't like. And
Yeah.
I feel like that sometimes people assume that influencers are fake because they only ever talk about the good things, but what they don't see is on the back end, like the dozens of brands I say no to or the dozens of wines I've sampled that week that I just don't end up on my page. And it's like, yeah, I could post a story being like, well, this wine sucked, but at the end of the day, like that was still somebody's like hard-earned time and money that went into
Yeah.
making that product, and I don't want to spread hate. And somebody somewhere might like it. It just wasn't for me, and so I'm not going to post about it. And yeah, I just gut feeling whatever feels aligned with me is what I talk about.
I agree. On the content creator side, if you're thinking about brand deals, in a previous life, I've also been sent a product and tested it and then didn't like it. And instead of then posting the video, it's okay to go back to the brand and say, hey, honestly, I tested it and I didn't like it because of XYZ. Would you like me to return the product to you? I'm sorry, I can't do this. And a brand, any brand would rather have either you just keep it, gift it, whatever, toss it, versus then have something else that's negative go out. And so if you can just handle it that way, the brand would appreciate that. But you just have to be communicative. Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes, let them respond. There could be, if it's an electronic product, maybe it was broken or something, right? And it was a bad batch, but you never know. But I'm glad that we're all thinking about that authentic piece of what are we going to share, what are we not going to share.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's scary. Like I had a wine tasting I did one time and I was supposed to post about it. And it was just such a bad experience that there was nothing like there was no spin. There was no way for me to like recommend it in good conscience. And so I had to talk to the PR person who I was working with and be like, hey, like this was my experience. Is this the person who normally pours? Is he new? And it turned out that he was not new. He was been there forever.
Oh no.
And I was like, okay, in good conscience, like I can't recommend this tasting experience. If things change in the future, I'd love to come back and re-review it, but keep me updated. But it was a really hard, scary conversation to have. And it would have been easier to ghost, but it's not professional.
Yeah, I think that's the tough part, right? Is you want to do these jobs and these opportunities for more opportunities too, because there's a network effect if it all works out and it's well. But at the same time, we're all people at the end of the day, and we're all trying to do the best for whatever brands are representing. So it's It's tough and it's a balance. Okay, on the balance, can we swap one last wine to taste through?
Yeah.
Can we go to Paso now? So this is our 2021 Lohr Hilltop Cabernet Sauvignon. Again, I met you guys both first in Paso, and while we did have a little bit of Chardonnay, this is Cabernet from Paso Robles.
Was this the one that you were pouring when we were having the Wagyu beef?
No, this was a different one.
Okay, because whatever that was with the Wagyu beef pairing, I still think about that combination. It was so good.
So good. That Paso Wine Fest was the best wine festival I've been to in a long time. That was so much fun.
I agree.
Yeah. What was the major highlights for you? Obviously, you had some Wagyu beef, and that was our Lohr Cuvée PAU. That was so this is our reserve level cab. That is our reserve level tier of cab, and then we have one more tier above that. But yes, that was a fun experience to curate too.
Yeah, that was delicious and definitely memorable, as you can tell.
Yeah, my goal was to create the longest line at the booth.
You definitely did.
I think we did that.
Yeah.
Okay, but for, say, either this cab or Paso cab in general, let's go pairings again. We're recording this at lunchtime. Whenever you're watching this for our audience, maybe get some inspiration.
My comfort meal is like a cheeseburger and a cab, like a California cab or a steak. I know that's, again, my pairings are a little basic today. Sorry, I'm lacking creativity, but truly, if I just it's like Friday, it's been a stressful week. I just want like a good juicy burger or steak on the grill and a California cab. And Paso is my go-to for California cab. So perfect combo.
How about if it's Friday, a meat lover's pizza? I feel like this would be really good with that.
Yeah.
Steak 100%. I'm also feeling boring today, and steak was the first thing that came to mind.
It's just, if it's not broken.
I'm trying to think on the marketing side, the wine holidays, which I think only wine marketers think about as a way to give an excuse to talk to the consumer. Last year, we did a In-N-Out versus what's the East Coast one burger chain? Goodness, it's like escaping me right now.
Oh,
Shake Shack.
Shake Shack
is one that's also in the Bay Area, and so I wanted to do that just honestly for the fights in the comments. I thought that would just be a fun post to make. This year, I did want to do a pizza one and do like different types of pizza, and the very last one, do like a gold flaked wrapped pizza, just again, just for the Instagram.
Did they make that?
No. I mean, you can buy edible gold flakes and just wrap it. So last year, actually, I did it with a burger. I did the In-N-Out versus Shake Shack. We compared the burger and the fries, and then I bought a nicer burger, and then obviously just took my own gold leaf and.
That's
fun.
Was there a winner between In-N-Out and Shake Shack?
I think what's difficult is that for a wine audience, at least the time that we were doing it, we had largely a California audience. Yeah. So
I was going to say, I know who my winner is, but that's because I'm from California.
I don't know, Paige, are you voting Shake Shack?
I'm voting neither. I'm going to throw Five Guys into the ring because that's my all-time favorite. I literally just had it last night. I needed comfort food. I had Five Guys. I swear it's the best burger. It's so good.
I actually haven't tried it.
It's magical. I don't know. There's something about, I think, so they fry everything in peanut oil and it just gives it like a better flavor. And I didn't eat red meat for 10 years. So it's funny that now I'm so obsessed with meat. Like I love steak, I love burgers, but I dream of Five Guys burgers all the time. It's so good.
I was the same way. I was pescatarian for 5 years, and now like burgers and steaks are my favorite food.
It's hard when you work in wine not to eat red meat.
Yes. Impossible.
Yeah, the restaurant scene, the whatever, everyone wants to taste the best, the most expensive thing, just because that's easily clickable and or sampleable. So let's go some rapid fire towards the very, very end. Can we do a little bit of overrated, underrated?
Ooh, I'm a little scared, but sure.
Me too.
And I did not give you any of these, and I'm actually gonna make some of these on the spot. Wine holidays.
I'm not good at answering fast, apparently. Underrated.
Lexi.
I mean, I could go either way on that one. Sometimes on a wine holiday, I'm like, ooh, it's champagne day. I guess I have to have a glass of champagne. So, yeah, underrated, I would say.
And I feel like if we did it better, because I don't always remember to plan, to be honest. If I did plan, those posts do well because people share it, because they're also excited to just have an excuse to have champagne. So
right.
Okay, I'll give you a third option. We can go overrated, underrated, properly rated.
Okay.
But I want the why.
Okay.
All right, wine pairings.
Underrated.
Underrated for both of you, okay? Why?
I mean, I feel like people are interested in them right now. Like I said, like my food pairing content is usually what gets me booked with brand deals. But I think like general consumers don't understand that it's actually like scientific and really crazy. So like during my tastings, sometimes I'll do like a wine and cheese pairing class, and like the amount of times I've seen people have their first aha moment and then they're like suddenly like, "Oh my god, this is actually a real thing." So I would say it's underrated because I think people in general are like, "Oh yeah, red wine with meat and white wine with fish," but like they don't actually understand like the science behind it and like how nerdy you could actually get with it. So I'm going to go with underrated.
Yeah, everything Lexi just said. I feel like there's like good wine pairings, like the basic rules, but then when you have those like otherworldly aha moments with the food and wine pairing where it comes together so perfectly, and like the wine is better and the food is better, and they just like those holy experiences, like they're so underrated. Like I don't think general consumers know how good it can get, and they need to play with it more.
All right. Decanting.
Overrated.
I never decant ever. I don't even have a decanter.
I just feel like as we trend into millennials and Gen Z, I think more of us just want unpretentious to enjoy the wine. It should be ready. Like I had a winemaker where I posted on my stories that I was opening his cab that night, and he was like, "Oh, but did you let it decant? I recommend that you decant it for 8 hours." And I was
8
like,
hours.
I was like, "Excuse me, it's like 7 p.m. I'm not having breakfast wine. I wanted this with my steak tonight." And I don't know. I get it. It does have a time and a place, and I do appreciate it when you need it, but I think a majority of consumers and myself just want to enjoy the wine. Like I'm happy to let it decant in my glass or use like a aerator, but I don't really want to let it sit for 8 hours before I can have it.
Yeah, sometimes you just want the instant gratification of, I want to pour it from the bottle. Can I pour a smaller amount maybe than aerate it with a nice swirl versus now waiting an hour?
Yeah.
I don't plan ahead enough for that.
I have this like Vinotive aerator that goes right on the bottle and it like aerates as you pour, and I do use that a lot. But again, I still get the instant gratification from that.
Okay, next one then on that, wine gadgets.
Ooh, that could go both ways because
so right where it is.
there's some that are like, yikes, and some that are amazing, like the Coravin, which is amazing. But like an electric wine opener, I don't need that. Or like those wands that are supposed to remove the sulfites or whatever from wine, those also need to go. So I would say it depends on the gadget.
Same.
Do you have one gadget that you swear by?
The Coravin for me.
I use my Coravin all the time. I Coravin this wine, despite you sending us multiple bottles. I knew that I wasn't going to have more of this later, and I didn't want to waste it. So Coravin.
Okay, the last one, just for the marketer in me, I want to know where you rank these platforms in terms of priority for your own content. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. What those four? From high to low.
Instagram's on the top for me.
Okay.
Honestly, I've been bad about TikTok the last couple months. It was a priority for a minute, and then there's just been so much else. Did you see YouTube and Twitter were the other two?
And Facebook.
Oh, Facebook. Those two are the same. I don't use them for me personally.
Okay.
Nothing against them. They're just not part of my sphere at the moment.
It's tough to be on all of them. Lexi, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Instagram, then TikTok, and then Facebook. I just, whatever I post on Instagram posts to Facebook automatically. And then YouTube, I haven't posted on it in probably a year. So,
Okay.
I feel like before getting into more social media channels, like both of us have newsletters that we send out. And like that's like Instagram's my first priority, then my newsletter, then my website,
yeah,
and then everything else.
I agree.
Newsletters quickly becoming the new grow this, own your audience type of messaging, I feel
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
So how long has that been a priority for you?
Since like day one for me, honestly.
Same.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's really like the place where I can actually chat with people, and it's like more personal because it's in their inbox. And so I feel like, you know, sometimes on Instagram you might not get fed a certain post, so you might miss some things, but in an email I feel like I'm like actually talking to people. So yeah, that's always been a priority for me.
Yeah. And I feel like in my newsletter, I can be more myself and not thinking about algorithms or trying to go viral or what hashtag. Like, it's just, this is what I want to talk about today. Here it is.
Yeah.
Okay, last marketing question. Thoughts on going live? Is that still a thing? Are you guys still doing that? How do you integrate that into your own strategy?
I keep meaning to do more of it, to be honest. I was planning on doing an Instagram live cocktail series, but I keep avoiding it. But I do like I did a Instagram live with Karen McNeil earlier this year, which was like one of the coolest fangirl moments of my life. And it was really successful, and there were a lot of people who joined in and asked questions. And so I feel like when it's done right and is like, we talked about social media marketing for wineries, and so it was a cool conversation. When it's done right, it can be useful, but you shouldn't go live just for the sake of going live.
I agree.
Yeah, I haven't done a live in forever. I feel like during COVID, I used to do it more often, like pretty consistently, but I don't know. Now that I have my virtual tastings, I feel like those are like my lives, kind of.
It's true. That's that's the paid subscriber audience.
Yeah,
They get the premium experience.
exactly.
Okay, the last question that I'll leave you with is, who is the last wine influencer that you met that you fangirled over? And then who's the next one that you love to meet? Just throw it out into the ethos.
My last fangirl moment was Madeline from Wine Folly. I met her like 2 weeks ago.
That's cool.
And I was so excited. We took a picture together. I was also very excited when she knew who I was.
Oh my gosh, that's
Even
so
better.
cool.
Right?
And then who's next on your dream want to meet list then?
Ooh, I have to think about that. Let Lexi answer the first part first.
I don't know. I don't know if I've met that many famous wine people, to be honest, but since I'm really into food, I got to meet Wolfgang Puck, and that was like a big moment for me. But yeah, I know that's not like a wine person, but I feel like I really haven't met that many famous wine people.
You gotta hang out in Napa. I feel like
Yeah, I guess so. Not a lot of wine people in Orange County. I mean, I finally got to meet Paige, and we had known each other online for years and had never met in person until Paso Wine Fest. So that was crazy. I mean, it already felt like we knew each other, but
I know, like
that was pretty crazy.
I forgot that we hadn't met in real life until I was trying to tell my brother how I knew you. And then I was like, oh.
Yeah. So that's always fun, is like meeting friends, your online friends in real life. Yeah. That's like the best part about it. But as far as like famous people, I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head that I'm like dying to. I mean, Wine Folly would be really cool.
Yeah, like who? I'm sure there's somebody that's going to come to me, and I'm going to be so mad I didn't say it during this, but
yeah.
All good. Well,
do you have a person?
Do I have a person? I mean, you know what's fun is thinking about, at least for booking this podcast, is also just thinking about who do we want on as guests? Who do I want to interview? Because I think it's one thing to meet them for business meetings and other things, but then for my, for the brand's own whether it be podcast or personal gain. I mean, for me right now, the hot list, at least to get on guests of podcasts, are probably some of the major publications, like publishers. Those are the next that I mean, I've met them, but I want them on the show.
Yeah.
Because that's like the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Versus advertising, which is a different why they want to meet.
Fair.
But I don't know. It's like on the celebrity side, I think it's tough because there's not many. There's more celebrity chefs than there are celebrity psalms.
Yeah.
Which I think they're. Now you think about it, like that's an interesting gap in the marketplace that I think if someone's listening to this and wants to take that challenge on, I think there's definitely some room there for sure.
Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about all of this and wrapping up, how can people find you both?
Well, Paige, I am on Instagram at winewithpaige or my website, winewithpaige.com. And I also have a whole bunch of free downloads for people who want to learn more about wine or working with wine influencers. If you're a winery, at winewithpaige.com/downloads.
Love it. And what about you, Lexi?
And then for Lexi, it's Lexi's Wine List on Instagram. And then my website is lexiswinelist.com. And then all my information for my wine tasting club, which is like my virtual tasting book club, is on my website as well.
Okay. Well, I will leave all of that linked down in the description. And then, of course, if you're listening to this and you made it this far, you're obviously our best friends. So thank you so much. Make sure to give this video a like and subscribe because we will be posting more episodes interviewing our wonderful trade folk and wine influencers like Paige and Lexi. And if you'd like to see the video with Madeline, we just published that as well. I will leave that either linked in the description or you can click somewhere around here. We'll have a little end card there. But Paige, Lexi, thanks so much for jumping on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.